It's no secret that I am a pretty big pop-punk fan. I've made it a point on this channel to express my love for all things pop-punk related. I've made countless videos on the genre. Okay, maybe not countless, but I've made a few. It's been my favorite genre since I was in middle school. I grew up loving bands like Blink-182 and Green Day and Fall Out Boy. And as I got older, I discovered bands like Neck Deep and Modern Baseball and As It Is. I've probably listened to every pop-punk band in the world at least once. And I gotta say, there's some hidden gems out there.
Are you sure?
Hello and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, I'm Trevor and I am eternally uncool. I make videos about music, music culture, and anything that interests me. But mostly music right now. So if that sounds like something you'd be into, then I highly recommend subscribing to the channel and watching the rest of this video. Pop punk is my favorite genre, and my favorite era of pop punk is the 2000s. We had bands like All Time Low, Good Charlotte, Fall Out Boy, Paramore, all at the height of their careers. This was the only time pop punk was gigantic in the mainstream. You thought Machine Gun Kelly did that shit?
Fuck no.
You fucking suck.
In the 2000s, everyone was listening to pop punk. Normies, jocks, geeks, preps, grandmas, probably. There were bands like My Chemical Romance on TRL alongside artists like Christina Aguilera and 50 Cent. It was the only time we were truly united as a people. Bands like Fall Out Boy and Taking Back Sunday and Sum 41 are all household names, whether you're a big pop punk fan or not. Everyone knows these bands. But what about the bands that didn't make it out of the 2000s? Where's their recognition? It's right here on the Eternally Uncool YouTube channel. What I want to do today is take a look at 4 underrated pop punk albums from the 2000s.
4? Trevor, that's one more than usual. You madman.
What can I say? We're going hard in 2024. I've compiled 4 albums that I think deserve a little bit more attention than they already get. If you're a fan of pop punk or a fan of the 2000s, then stick around. Grab a drink, grab a snack, get nostalgic, and let's get into the video. If you were a teenager in the 2010s, you probably know this song. And this one. Cobra Starship was a dance pop band that was really big in the 2010s. It was the brainchild of frontman Gabe Saporta, a notorious face in the alternative music scene, rubbing shoulders with people like Pete Wentz, Mikey Way, and Jeffree Star. But did you know that this dance pop hitmaker started his career in a pop punk band? Midtown was formed in New Brunswick, New Jersey in 1998 by Rutgers students Gabe Saporta, Tyler Rann, and Rob Hilt, along with guitarist Heath Saraceno. This was around the time that the New Jersey scene was really popping off with bands like Saves the Day and Thursday. And Gabe wasn't content to sit back and let everyone else get the spotlight. No, he wanted to start his own project. He'd promote his music on ancient forms of direct messaging like AIM, and pretty soon Midtown would develop a following. Midtown released their debut album, Save the World, Lose the Girl, in 2001 via Drive-Thru Records. This album is pretty good, a little rough, but still good. I didn't really get into this one as much. I got into it a lot later in life, especially songs like Such a Person, because it uses an interpolation of the song God Gave Rock and Roll to You, which I love because it was included in the movie Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. And that is one of my childhood favorites. I still love that movie. But But we're not talking about their debut today. The album we're focusing on is their 2002 sophomore release, Living Well is the Best Revenge. As with much of the music I discovered when I was a kid, I found Midtown and this album through my older brother. This album was downloaded onto the family computer and I spent most of my free time on that thing. You know, mostly playing Sims and looking up movie trivia on IMDb.
Yeah, I was a pretty cool kid.
I think I was probably looking for music to put onto my Zune, and I wasn't allowed to buy music from the Apple Store or Google Play or wherever you bought music in the early to mid 2000s. So I downloaded whatever was on my computer. But I noticed one album I had never heard before by a band I had never even heard of. I was really intrigued by the album title and the album artwork. So I put a few songs whose titles caught my eye onto my Zune, and I was hooked. Living Well was released in 2002 on Drive-Thru Records. It was produced by Mark Trombino, who at this time was coming off of a massive success with Jimmy Eat World's Bleed American. They recorded the album over 2.5 months, a stark contrast to the 20 days it took for them to record their debut. This was because the band wanted more time to experiment. The album is a good mix of pop and pop punk.
Duh.
No, but Gabe Saporta had a real ear for pop. He really knew how to craft a hook. And it really shows in songs like a Movie.
She tries to replace how it feels, but I know she can never go home.
And then there's songs that are just pure pop punk perfection, like Become What You Hate.
Then I'm afraid that you become everything that you hated. I'm waiting for this to blow away.
The album got some fairly positive reviews. Modern Fix called it too poppy, but reassured readers that that was a good thing. Ink 19 called it an original and distinct album. And Punk News complimented Trombino's production that allowed the band to come across as loud as possible while still leaving space to grow. Personally, I think this album is hella underrated, which is why it's on my underrated pop punks list. Whereas albums like Tell All Your Friends and the All American Rejects debut are considered pop punk classics today, people seem to forget about Living Well is the Best Revenge and Midtown. Why?
Why?
Gabe Saporta was a fixture in the emo and pop punk scene. And this album also has undeniably great songs. Also, while a good majority of pop punk bands in the 2000s incorporated 2 vocalists, Midtown had not 1, not 2, but 3 vocalists. Taking Back Sunday couldn't do that shit. I'm just kidding, I love you, Taking Back Sunday, don't be mad at me. I think Midtown is more beloved in the scene than by a wider commercial audience like a band like Fall Out Boy. If you're into pop punk and emo, then you'll definitely love Midtown and this album. Living Well is the Best Revenge is a good album for anyone looking for a more poppy pop punk album. But not too poppy that it loses its edge. It's just right. I've said in previous videos that I used to make a lot of mix CDs. And a good portion of making those mix CDs involved burning other CDs onto my shitty little laptop. And this laptop didn't have a disc port, so I had to get this really chunky dongle type thing. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, found it. This was the laptop, and this was the dongle thing that you put CDs in there, put them on the computer. This doesn't work anymore. I don't know why. I want to get it fixed because I really want to make mix CDs again, but I'm getting off topic. I put everything onto that computer, every CD I ever owned, including some mix CDs that my brothers had made. Most of the time, I didn't know what the hell was on these CDs. So I would have to do a lot of research if a song really struck me. And one of the songs that struck me hardest was a song on a kind of pop punk indie rock mix that my brother made. And I found out the song title was This Is Not an Exit by a band called Saves the Day.
And sail belly up to the clouds, the rocks scraping up
Saves the Day was a pretty big deal in New Jersey in the late 90s and early 2000s. They were the band that everyone deferred to. They were the band that really put the New Jersey scene on the map. Their sound started out more melodic hardcore than pop punk. Their first two albums, Can't Slow Down and Through Being Cool, are widely considered to be some of the best in the genre. But the band really started to gain mainstream success and recognition with the release of their third album, Stay What You Are. Stay What You Are differed from the band's previous albums in that it was more pop-oriented. The album was produced by Rob Schnapf, who by that point had done a lot of work with Elliott Smith's band Heat Miser. Singer Chris Conley said that Schnapf was a very laid-back and mellow presence in the studio, allowing the band a more creative environment. They slowed down their sound and focused more on the melodies, and I think this really benefited them. While Through Being Cool and Can't Slow Down are really good albums, it's not how I discovered them. I discovered them through this album, so I'm kind of biased in my praise for it. But there's no denying that this is their best work. The opening track really cements their maturity, writing about the death of a friend. A song like Cars and Calories talking about celebrity obsession is pretty much timeless. And of course, This Is Not an Exit is a song that still hits me even all these years later. And I know I can't really talk about Saves the Day without bringing up Chris Conley's misconduct allegations. He sent inappropriate pictures to underage fans. Their label, Equal Vision, quietly dropped them, and they haven't really done anything since. I will say, I was never a giant fan of Saves the Day. They have a few good songs outside of this one really great album. But other than that, I think they really peaked with Stay What You Are. If you like emo-inflected pop punk with great melodies, then I highly recommend Saves the Day's Stay What You Are.
Alright, you guys know what the fuck to do! Let's show Warsaw what you can do! Come on, time! Open this place up!
Easycore is a really interesting subgenre of pop punk and hardcore, taking the energy and aggression of metalcore and mixing it with the melodies and hooks of pop punk, maybe even adding a few keyboards or synths for good measure. The biggest names in this genre are probably A Day to Remember, Chunk, No Captain Chunk, and Set Your Goals. I think the band that perfected the modern Easycore sound was 4 Years Strong. 4 Years Strong was formed in Worcester, Massachusetts in 2001. Their early stuff sounds like your typical 2000s post-hardcore. They hadn't really perfected that Easycore sound yet. They wouldn't really adopt the metalcore sound until their debut album, which was released in 2005. They would cement themselves as Easycore legends with the release of their sophomore album, Rise or Die Trying. Prior to the release of this album, 4 Years Strong would appear on the Vans Warped Tour. They would catch the ear of none other than Pete Wentz, who would sign them to his label, Decay Dance, and they would release Rise or Die Trying jointly with I Surrender Records in 2007. This album was really the blueprint for Easycore in the late 2000s and early 2010s. Chugging guitars, pounding drums, and dual vocalists who share cleans and uncleans equally, as well as a heavy sound that still retained the fun that pop punk in the 2000s is associated with. Songs like Prepare to Be Digitally Manipulated would set the mood for the energy that the album would bring. And songs like Heroes Get Remembered, Legends Never Die is one of the most underrated pop punk songs of all time.
I'm saying the best and worst of you, or stick
I really think this is the album that every Easycore band has to thank for creating the genre. I don't think we'd have bands like Neck Deep or The Story So Far or Broadside, bands that mix melodic hardcore with pop-punk energy, if it wasn't for 4 Years Strong and Rise or Die Trying. I highly recommend this album if you're a fan of A Day to Remember, and the heavier, chuggier side of pop-punk. The late 2000s and early 2010s saw the rise of co-ed, emo, and indie bands. Bands like He Is We Are the In Crowd, Tonight Alive. These all came in the wake of Paramore's massive success in the 2000s with albums like Riot and Brand New Eyes. Most of these bands never reached the same heights as Miss Williams and co., but they did gain a fair amount of recognition within their respective scenes. But one band I never see talked about nearly enough in the male-female vocalist genre is 1997. 1997 was formed in Chicago, Illinois in 2005. Their members came from several notable Chicago-based pop-punk and emo bands. After some local buzz, the band was signed to Victory Records in 2006. And through Victory, they released their debut album, A Better View of the Rising Moon, in 2007. Now, the album comes from a haiku by 17th century poet and samurai, I'm gonna butcher this name, Mizuto Masahide, called Barns Burnt Down, which goes,
"Since my house burned down, I now own a better view of the rising moon."
The album's sound is a little bit closer to emo than it is pop punk, but I'm gonna overlook that for the sake of this video. The opening track, Water's Edge, would fit perfectly with bands like A Stray Light Run or The Hush Sound. The songs on this album are really lush, more so than any other pop-punk band I can think of at this time. But they still have that classic pop-punk sound, especially with my favorite song on the album and the song that introduced me to the band, Garden of Evil.
Turn the lights off. I don't wanna see myself doing this. I just wanna love you. I just wanna love you as much as he did.
This was one of the songs that was on repeat for me in high school, and one of the songs from high school that I still continue to enjoy to this day. There's slower moments on this album too, like On the Run, which has a kind of more folksy vibe to it.
Sometimes you gotta hurt to feel okay. Sometimes you gotta run to make your problems go away.
But the energy on the album never dips. There's always a song like Hey Darlin' to keep the momentum going. A Better View of the Rising Moon is a bit more sugary and sweet than some of the other albums on this list, but that doesn't mean that it lacks substance. It's a very good album that mixes influences like Mineral with pop-punk trappings. The alternating male and female vocals are perfect. They complement each other really well. They would release 2 albums after this and then break up in 2010. Which is disappointing because they were a really good band. Check out 1997's A Better View of the Rising Moon if you like more indie-influenced pop-punk. Have you listened to any of these albums? Do you like them? Are there any other bands and albums you want to hear me talk about in a future video? Let me know in the comments. That's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, then I highly recommend smashing that like button and sharing this video with everyone you know. I am trying to get 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2024, and every like, every comment, every share, any interaction with this video at all really helps to get it pushed out in the algorithm and reach more people who might be interested in what I'm doing. With all that being said, thank you for watching. As always, I'm Trevor. Stay uncool. And that's the end of the video. Goodbye.